Hello and welcome to another episode of Anyways. Today we are talking about the third episode of Season 2, New Money. I'm Ben.
Steven.
Chad.
And what did you guys think of the episode New Money?
My dick hurts.
Just watching it.
Yeah. It's horrifying.
That was difficult. Might be jumping ahead a bit, but there's some minor dick action. It's a weird way to put it.
Al has
I
a
would call
kidney
it
stone.
major dick action,
It was major.
but not in a sexual way.
No,
It's in a sad way.
in a sad, bloody way.
Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing scene because you never actually see. They talk about this metal rod going inside his penis, but they never talk about to remove the kidney stone that is trapped within inside his penis and causing him in a place without medical attention lots of pain. You never see it. You hear a lot of pain, and
Yeah, that's enough.
but it's HBO. You think it would have been better if they had shown it?
No, I couldn't have handled it.
Because you think about something about Mary, where they eventually show like the damage to like the male genitals,
Right.
after a lot of buildup.
Yeah.
But with this, they never show Al's junk.
That's for the best.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah,
it's very
I
uncomfortable.
mean, just sound design alone
Very visceral.
sells that.
Yeah.
And every single person is like just just looks so sad and upset. And
In the entire town.
his
Because
voice,
they can all hear it.
yeah. His voice carries, except, and we are really, if we get in the nitty gritty, I guess we're jumping ahead, but there's the only person in town who doesn't hear it is Bullock and his new wife and child.
Because he's just far enough. He's on the other side of the creek.
Yeah.
So it's just far enough away next to Jumbo.
Jumbo the trout.
Yeah.
Jumbo the trout. Just like Jeff the possum that lives here.
In our studio, there's
Yeah.
a possum that has infiltrated the space.
He's been sighted.
His name's Jeff. It's
But,
pretty cool.
But Bullock, I'd say, is emotionally distant from the pain of the riffraff who is.
I mean, just
Al.
like Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. So,
Anyways.
there's a lot to discuss in this episode. The other big question before we go into specifics I wanted to ask was, Chad, you've never seen this episode before.
Never seen any episode before.
Okay. And then, Steven, have you seen this episode before?
I actually jumped ahead because I usually get here after y'all have already seen a couple episodes, so I figured I'd, jump the gun and be on point, but then that didn't happen. So I did watch this
cool.
previously,
Yeah.
about a week ago.
Yeah.
So, but it was
good.
neat having it fresh on my mind and revisiting it. So yeah,
It's a rare show where you watch it twice and it actually gets better the second time you watch it.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But
It was pretty fucking great the first time.
I was very curious about your reaction to the appearance of an actor who previously played Jack McCall. He appears portraying Mr. Wu for the first time, Francis Wolcott, in this episode. And
Mr. W.
Mr. W, sorry, yeah, not Mr. Wu.
That would be very
That confused
racist.
me. It
That
confused
would be
me for
very
a second.
racist.
Yes, yeah. But what was your reaction to that? You at first you said that looks kind of like that other actor.
I was like, that looks just like Jack McCall.
Yeah, and then eventually you're like, that is him.
It's like, and then I was like, that's one in a row for you, Wild Bill.
He doesn't have the nose and eye prosthetics that he had.
Sure, and so in a way, he's the chameleon and can become something else. And I still don't know exactly what's going on. My first inclination was to say, oh, this is his brother from the thing that was seemingly made up. I was like trying to rationalize it in my head, and I'm getting kind of like the vibe.
Oh, you mean his brother who was shot in Abilene?
Yes.
That he made up just to get out of getting charged with murder.
Yes. And I've been getting the vibe ever since I said that while we watched the episode that that's not true, and that he's just this is just a different character, and he's playing a different character now. Don't tell me one way or the other. I don't care.
Okay, yeah. But I was really nervous about your reaction to his arrival. I was like, is he just going to be like, this is stupid?
I don't think it's stupid yet.
I don't think it's stupid either. I love it, actually. But it's a hard one. It's one of the choices the show makes that I was like scratching my head.
He's
First time I saw
I mean, he's a chameleon. Everything that he's in ever, I'm like, I know him,
Yeah. Yeah, Garret Dillahunt usually doesn't look,
and that's it.
his eyebrows somehow, his forehead is usually looks so much bigger, but because he has the hats in this, his head looks quite different. Did you have the same reaction, or?
No, I just thought it was a totally different character and actor. It was like, it looks vaguely like Jared Leto. I don't know. Couldn't really place him, but yeah, no, I was just blind to
Well,
it.
Like the most major difference between them is Jack McCall was really lower class, and Mr.
Right.
Ray is very highfalutin.
And always looked filthy, and just
Fucked up eye.
yeah,
fucked
messed up eye.
face,
Uh-huh.
thrown in the mud constantly, always covered in just shit,
Yeah.
basically.
Very
looking
pathetic.
like he smells
Yes.
more than the rest of them.
Looking
'cause
like
they
he
all
belongs
smell.
at the gym.
Yeah.
That's what you get over there. Ones that don't wash.
Yeah, he's very pathetic. But this new Garret Dillahunt character, or this character whose name played by Garret Dillahunt is
His name is Garret Dillahunt.
Garret Dillahunt
Garret Dillahunt.
is very haughty and sure of himself and rich.
Yes.
And it's polar opposite. And is there anything general you guys want to say about the episode before we go through those scenes? Or?
No, but remind me later when we get to that scene with Cy where he talks about being the opposite of something.
Okay.
Because that's amazing.
All right. So what the first scene is Al on the floor. He's in pain.
Yep.
His piss pot is overturned.
Yes.
And he's just
Is he using that rag to take the piss out of the pot and like dab his head or something?
It definitely looked like he was sort of squeezing the rag to like get water on his forehead.
And the only
I don't
thing
know
that
if
would
that
be
was
available to him is that overturned piss pot.
Yeah,
possibly.
maybe. I
don't
even
know. I mean, I guess that's kind of like there's no way to answer that one way or the other.
Sure.
And he just went to bed after he threw because everything in Deadwood happens the day after the previous episode. He just threw the hat of Bullock's back to him.
Right.
And Dolly just stuck her thumb in his butt. And then he went to bed.
Yeah.
And then now he's immobile.
Right.
And they clarify that in the episode. It's like, where's Dolly? She was just up there.
So I don't 100% understand what the correlation between the asshole and the kidney stones, because I don't know anything about
I think it's just his
medical
urethra and
stuff.
his prostate.
It's just enlarged enough that it's to where she needed to stick her thumb up his ass. So
Yeah, I think
that-
she's giving
because
him-
It's like being pressed against his.
I would assume. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't.
Or
I'm not,
something.
I'm not too sure, but like, yeah, I think
Okay.
she's pressing on his prostate to relieve his urethra, which is blocked. We've seen him say things like "this fucking thing" while he's peeing. He's constantly peeing.
Right.
He's constantly talking.
This has started a few episodes before. This.
Right.
But now it's come to a head, and we have to admit that it's not just a funny throwaway line, but he's like literally, he seems to be really fucked up.
Yeah. Extremely fucked up. I mean, the first time you see him, he's laid out on the floor, sweating, and you realize over the course of the episode that that's just how he's going to be.
Yeah.
But nobody's going to come in there because they're terrified of going into Al's residence without permission.
Well, he
Right.
responds audibly to him. You know, he like.
Yes, but mostly it's like, yes, and that's it. And like that's all they can get out of him.
Yeah.
He told Johnny to get the fuck away when last time Johnny tried to knock on the door.
And that's the most
so-
syllables you hear
Yeah, that-
out of him.
well,
You
don't hear it, but
you don't
yeah.
hear him say it in the episode, but like that's the most syllables that like we know that he said in the past 24 hours of this episode. It's
Right.
like, get the fuck out of here, Johnny, which seems like a lot compared to what happens in the actual episode where he can barely say yes
Right.
without looking like he's about to die.
There's a really funny moment where he goes, he struggles to talk. He gets really excited by the look on his face that Trixie is talking to him. And he's like, Trixie's talking, I need to say something. And he goes, yeah. And then there's this look of embarrassment,
Yeah.
like a wince, like he's like, oh, I sounded like adult. So it's like he's trying to impress Trixie. We've seen him kill every person that he meets,
Yes.
or threaten his underlings for minor mistakes.
Right.
Then we've seen him get really excited to see him show compassion. And then we've seen him kill people out of compassion.
We've seen moments of vulnerability where he lets people live, or when he's complacent in things happening, but we haven't seen Al like on the floor, unable to do anything until now.
Yeah.
Is like completely just an invalid.
Yeah. There's an idea that suffering ennobles you, or it makes
Sure.
you, it redeems you, that you can suffer, and that, Al's had these kind of like quiet references to him as Christ. There's a few joking references.
Yeah.
And so like, now he's
Christ
literally,
crucified.
yeah, he's now suffering physically in pain.
Yes, yes.
And so how did that affect?
And Bullock has the mark of Cain.
Yeah, he does.
But
Bullock.
anyway, you were going to say.
But I just was saying, did that affect your sympathy? Did you feel like Al suffered a lot? He's a good guy.
Maybe I am too aware, because I know that we're going to talk about it afterwards, I guess. Maybe I'm too aware of things that are happening in it, because like maybe if I was just watching the show without expecting to have any sort of opinion about it afterwards, then I would be like, oh, this is a very sympathetic episode for Al. But like I saw him initially and him looking like a bag of shit and barely functional, and I was like, and like for
Specifically
3 seconds,
Yeah.
at the very first time you see him in the episode, which is like the opening of the episode, was like, oh man, he's human, or whatever. But then immediately it was just like, yeah, but then all these other images fled back of him being like a bag of shit to everybody. It humanizes him, but not enough for me in this moment to be like, all I can think about is Al's suffering. That comes way later into it, and it becomes way more personal when they have to jam a giant rod into his pee hole. It's like, then it becomes, obviously, if you're a man, it becomes very visceral, and you're thinking about something being shoved inside of your pee hole where things aren't supposed to go in.
Where it's very tender.
It's very tender. Things are supposed to come out, and it's only supposed to be liquid, not a piece of steel.
Yeah.
Then that becomes much more obvious and much more concrete.
Well, it's funny you use the term bag of shit, which is something that he referred to the Reverend as a human being in his last extremities is a bag of shit to hold, is what he said last time when the Reverend was dying.
Yep.
And, like with the character, like on the television series Game of Thrones, like someone once talked about the character of Theon, this is unrelated to Deadwood, but as a character who is redeemed by suffering. He has his penis cut off.
Right.
And he turns from a villain to a hero during the course of the series after he's been castrated. And
it's a good heel turn.
Yeah.
To steal wrestling.
It's a good way to put
terms.
it, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. But my friend once used Theon as an example to say suffering does not ennoble villains.
Right.
And I would say that Chad, you have a tendency when talking about the villains in the show to say, like, that's a violent character or that's a dumb character. Fuck them. They deserve to die. But I feel like a lot of it's the presentation of them. Like, Al, we get these grace notes with some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them are buffoons.
Yeah.
And then they are quickly slaughtered. Or some of them are just pure villains, and they're quickly slaughtered. But some of them who arguably do, Al, again, it's unclear exactly the nature of some of Al's crimes. Like, again, the beginning of this episode is the prostitutes are acting like bored office workers. They're like, when are we going to start? And Al's like, and Danny and Johnny just yell at him like, we'll start when we fucking want to. But it's like, that, like there's also indications that maybe these women are kidnapped from an orphanage and forced here. So, but they're at the same time they seem
Not
pretty,
just indications, but like blatantly told.
well, we know that from
previous
we know that
episodes.
from the actual history.
Yes.
And we also know that from.
Al said it in bed while
He
he was
kidnapped Dolly.
Dolly.
But at the same time, Dolly seems to love Al. But I mean, that could be Stockholm syndrome.
It is Stockholm syndrome.
But it's just like
100%.
a lot of the prostitutes in the series seem free to go as they please, but you have these references like we had with the Chez Ami, like don't bolt for freedom when they walk out the door.
Exactly.
But it seems it's just a little weird. Like, I mean, they couldn't leave Deadwood if they wanted to because it's like it's in the middle of like a war in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
But,
And then also like everybody who's coming or going is like the key people. Al, Cy,
yeah,
people you don't want to fuck with.
That's true.
Know who's coming or going.
yeah.
Right.
So unless you have enough money to bribe somebody to not say shit for people who are going to fucking murder you for hiding this from them, is like, unless you have that kind of money, then you're not fucking leaving.
Well, and so I wanted to contrast Al, who's like a serial abductor of women.
Yes.
With Alma Garrett's dad, who last time we did, like before the end of last season, we talked about how that dude, we were all super excited that Bullock gave him a beat down.
Yeah, beat the living
shit out of him. And and there's a level of presentation where Al could be presented in that same way, but he's not.
Yeah.
Because he has these redeemable qualities, and I'm not sure that Otis Russell had any redeemable qualities, but there's just certain things the show does, and I have a lot of sympathy for Al in these episodes and throughout this whole thing.
I think one of the things that makes
but obviously he's
Al redeemable over Otis Russell, right? So his name is obviously because of the presentation, because Otis Russell is shown and by everybody in even like Farnum pigeonholes him as like a huckster and a piece of shit,
a broad tosser, a cheat, and a clip.
Yes, it's like, and it's so obvious to everybody.
Yeah,
and to molest your own daughter.
Yeah.
There's levels. Like in real life, there's levels to anything, but also there's levels in Deadwood, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so
Al is arguably responsible for that on a greater scale.
Al is responsible for that on a greater scale to an extent. But again, like if you spend enough time with a monster, then you find redeemable qualities within them. So if like Otis Russell had been around for a while, then maybe there had been something to find there. But there is something that's quite more irredeemable to our social standards now to molesting your offspring.
Yeah.
As to where
Swearengen
is...
Swearengen wants to kill children.
You could almost frame it as though in his mind he's liberating these women and taking them out of the same situation.
He explicitly says that.
That he was brought up in and giving them a new life. It's like in his own mind he is the hero. Even though at times he literally says like, I have to be the villain right now to Bullock or whoever, according to how the press is going to see this and whatnot.
His speech,
right. But in his own mind, he is the hero, and he's going to save these people through pure capitalism.
Yeah. And we get more on that in this episode. And I'm sorry that we've gone on this tangent, but it's an interesting tangent.
It was an interesting tangent. It was worth going.
But like there's a little bit later that we get to learn about his psychology behind Jewel.
Yeah.
And he claims to Trixie that he has her around in case anyone has 9 cents and wants to have sex. Right. They can't afford like the 15 cent.
That's interesting. Yeah, we should get into that once we get to the Jewel part.
We'll keep going. I took us down a dark path there. What is next?
So Wolcott arrives in the camp.
W shows up.
Mr. W.
George W. Bush shows up.
And Charlie Utter does a double take as he walks past.
Yes.
Which is a cute thing.
which is funny that he's even in that scene. Yeah. No real reason to, other than it just makes the world feel connected.
There's kind of this convention in like 1950s westerns where there'd be guest stars that come to town, and the guest stars would sometimes repeat, I think, and so you'd sometimes have more than an actor would go to a series and he'd play different characters on that series. Yeah, different guest stars.
Right, and then you have the deputy of the town come in and be like, that's supposed to be. That's that guy we put away.
Yeah. And E.B. Farnum finds him and talks to him about... he looks at his luggage like he's like, my staff will install your possessions. And he just looks like he's just coveting the man's luggage. Because I guess it's expensive luggage.
Right. But that's on par for E.B. Just a fucking loser and a just always looking to make a buck, which we'll get into more in this episode.
Yeah,
just bowing and scraping, trying to finagle people.
Is the opposite of Al.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, opposite in terms of in the same side of the spectrum, to where Al is on the top rung, and doesn't have to worry about like eyeing people's luggage to see who's worth taking or whatever. Is like Al knows what's going on. He's well informed and all this stuff, and EB has to like find his own way and find people to, take for a ride.
Right.
Which
he tries to do.
Tries really
with
hard and
Wolcott.
just fails so miserably. And then we're into Seth.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, we're back at the Bullock household.
Built by hand, by Seth Bullock's hands.
Yeah. Well, he does mention he had people that he instructed, that he annoyed by instructing them in his letter.
Yeah.
But he built it by hand, pretty much.
This is the scene where he talks about the letters, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, we talked about some letters that were never written, and then, it's like, I would appreciate it if you didn't mention those again. And then she's like, I wouldn't remember what letters were written or whatever. It's like, she basically gives him permission to be like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
And it's unclear how much she understands that he's like saying, I was lying about, he's covering up adultery.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't know that.
Yeah.
She just thinks that it's maybe some slight impropriety of like talking to this other lady or something. There's no indication that she knows that they've been fucking or anything.
And she has a great line, which is, I'll hold my deepest gratitude, Mr. Bullock, for what will let us live as we are now.
That's an insane line, because it's like, that tells you everything you need to know about both of them, the kid and her. It's just like, whatever's going to keep us alive is fine. Is like, that's the bare minimum of what we need, and it's like, if that's all you're going to give, then that's fine with me.
Yeah. And also, it's like bygones be bygones.
You're right.
Like whatever. You lied yesterday about some letters.
Exactly.
It's
That's
cool.
fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah. And then we go back to Walcott and EB.
And the oatmeal.
Yeah. And
Oatmeal. This oatmeal looks old.
It ain't been to the 3 hours yet.
It's 45 minutes to the 3 hours.
45 minutes to the 3 hours. Well, take that shit away and give us some new fucking oatmeal.
And this is also the first episode I've seen where Chad, you've appreciated Richardson more. You said it's cool that he has an underling, or he has a henchman. You said something like that.
Yeah, it's great that he has an underling. It's like that he can, and I feel like it's becoming more and more necessary as we focus more on the fact that Al has his own underlings, and that EB seems to be distancing himself from Al in a way, whether it's inadvertent or intentional at times. Mm-hmm. And if it's almost like that divide, the thoroughfare there between them is getting wider, to where he does need somebody like Richardson that he can boss around, because eventually he wants to be Al. We've talked about this before. It's like Al's his mentor and all that stuff.
Well,
and it's interesting with Johnny in this episode, because I feel like I'm starting to get more of a sense that Johnny is right below Dan.
Yeah.
Where I don't feel like, I mean, maybe it's been that way for a minute, but like, I feel like it's getting more and more solidified where Johnny, I think in the first part here, he's locked the door, Dan. When he locks the door when he leaves his office. He doesn't lock the door when he's inside. And he's like, kind of like taking that to heart. And like talking back to Dan, which I don't think he would have done before now, but Dan has basically told him like, look, I've got you in line. You're an up and coming road agent. Is like you're the next in line to Dan kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so what's it, Richardson? Richardson is becoming EB's, not his road agent, but he's becoming his assistant.
Well, it serves as a sort of important role in this show that different people serve to these, other more powerful characters like Al or Cy is a soundboard. It's somebody for them to soliloquize to.
Exactly.
Like and just because otherwise they just be talking out loud.
And EB
to
is
themselves.
getting more and more soliloquying.
It's
whatever the fuck you want to call it. Yeah.
The part that comes up later where Richardson is washing the table. And EB comes in. It's downright Shakespearean.
It is.
It's even in like the movements and the
fish,
gestures and
it's ridiculous.
He starts with a theme, and he has a metaphor.
Yes.
with the ocean
Which
and
is
the tide.
insane. We'll get to it. But so the oatmeal's old. And then
EB has a great line. In this camp, one draws one's menials from a small and brackish pool.
again, going into the water,
Yeah.
kind of
And
like
immediately
ongoing metaphor.
He
for
has a
that.
problem.
And
He insults Richardson. Like,
Yeah.
It
So
works.
I didn't even notice that while we were watching it, but like there's him talking about brackish water. There's him talking about the fish. Later, there's Bullock and that other kid talking about that crick
And the trout.
and the trout.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of water stuff
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on in this episode. I don't know if it really 100% connects, but like it's something that was on the mind of
Yeah.
the writer.
Well, I mean, it's all tied to the concept of like, like the market forces will throw you out. And
Yes.
When will come the harbor of our declining years, Richardson?
Right.
Like the ocean is violent and no one's free from it.
Once the pig is digested, perhaps we could pursue a possibility that's come to mind.
just spinning, just trying.
And Francis Wolcott is eating bacon, which is the only thing that's edible, and he's just like smiling.
Yes.
You know?
The bacon that I think we were talking about the other day is fed by human remains.
Oh, that's true.
Is
So
Yeah,
everybody in this camp who comes to get breakfast
Yeah.
is constantly getting fed by the dead of this town. And like who knows how many people were killed during the winter in between
Right.
season 1 and season 2, but like it's just interesting how you can almost like I would love to see like some sort of diagram that shows you like this person was digested by these hogs who were obviously slaughtered to feed these people, and it's like so they're eating this dead person and garnering their weaknesses and strengths within them.
I've never thought about that. That's amazing.
It's fucked up.
But he looks so happy eating that bacon. He's so delighted that Farnum is going to come and try to rip him off.
Yeah.
Like it's just fun. And Maddie, who is the board queen across the room with
Board queen, yeah.
Joni Stubbs says, that man.
That creature. That
Yeah, she knows quote unquote W from something else.
Yeah, she's basically come to town for W. She explains it later
Okay.
that she is planning. She's specifically, according to this episode, planning to make her fortune on him, and because he has a thing for one of her prostitutes
Who's not yet
who's
arrived.
not yet arrived.
So she
And he's
knew
violent.
that he was coming.
She knew that he was coming, and she knew Joni beforehand. So she
So that's the real reason why she's here.
yeah. She set up that entire hotel to cater to him. I feel like-
I got that a little bit, but I didn't 100%.
Yeah, I may be
Understand.
jumping the gun, but I don't think I think that was pretty much laid out. She basically said
No, I
that's
think-
her plan for.
I think it was. Yeah. And that's insane.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, he's really rich. I mean,
I mean, I guess so. He came in and threw down $9,900
For a letter.
for a letter. For
Yeah.
like pretty much knowing he was going to be fucking taken for a ride.
But then that's the knowing. Then he has his hook in
Then he has leverage.
Farnum. Yeah.
yeah. And he's also every time he speaks the name Hearst, people quiver. with
Like,
fright.
yeah.
People
just-
immediately like, ugh.
Their face changes. Yeah.
And they're very afraid. But anyway, that's I think that's part
Which
of what
Hearst
This is the father.
the father of William Randolph Hearst.
This is George Hearst,
Yes.
who made the fortune, which would then I think become his son's way to enter the newspaper business,
Yes.
which was again allegorized in Citizen Kane.
Yes.
Yes.
But
But he made his money doing basically strip mining or something.
he made his money in the Comstock Lode, which is a gold rush in I think Nevada. I looked it up a little bit before, and
It
sadly,
said something about Mexico too.
yeah, Mexico. Maybe it is. I think Comstock. He made his fortune in different places. He has a lot of experience in making fortunes with gold claims and mining, and
which
he's
is
famous for being,
presumably one of the reasons why W is here,
yeah.
which we get into in a minute.
Yeah. But in this world, he has almost a sinister-like reputation where people are very
Yes.
afraid of even offending Mr. Walcott just because he mentions that he works for Hearst.
Well, of course. Why wouldn't you be scared? Because that's the guy. That's like one of the richest guys around, and especially for a capitalist, like pretty much everybody in this town except for maybe Bullock. I mean,
Bullock doesn't chase the money so
Bullock
much.
doesn't care about money that
Yeah.
much. He cares more about revenge / justice.
Yeah.
I'll say that. But there are very few people in this town that don't care about capitalism, and so anytime that's brought up, it's like, oh God, it's like he could either be the reason why I make money or I don't make any money and I end up in the poorhouse and die in a gutter.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes perfect sense. So then we're back to the gym, right? And then that's when EB comes up and knocks on the door and it says, EB Farnum demanding entry. And that's when I realized that there's the bottom of the door doesn't reach the floor even slightly.
Right.
It's like a 4, 5, 6 inch gap to the bottom of the door, so you can like just see people's feet out there, and he's just waiting. And finally, it's like, I think, does Dan like kind of just like nod? And,
Yeah, he like does the
fuck it.
head
It's like-
gesture to the
because nobody
other
was
guy.
going to let him in otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
So Dan lets him in.
Yeah, and this we're not sure about where the script came from, but the stage directions say he lets EB in with a Vanna White style sweep of the arm. So very
little bit of-
strange.
That's a very strange way of saying it.
Yeah, but EB has this great thing where they're like, "Would you like to leave a message, EB?" And EB doesn't understand that Al's not well, so he says, "Yes." And he has this wonderful, almost cute letter where he's like talks about a leviathan, your fish, water metaphors again, and then he ends
In
with,
fact, I do, yes. Quote, Al, if you're not dead and already moldering, I send news to revive you. A fish to rival the fabled Leviathan has swum into our waters. Get well soon, and we will land this cocksucker together. Your friend, E.B.
he says that last little bit like just this. There's emphasis on your friend. I'm his friend, and it's really good. And there's always this emphasis on how much he wants to be esteemed by Al, and it really is. And it's so you almost are like it's so like nice, and you're like, oh, EB likes Al, and then he ends it, of course, as the show often does, with a reference to the newly arrived cunt. And it's like, it's just like the show often has like these almost like really beautiful things that it just reminds you of like some type of genital or cuss word or
Something
racism
gross.
or something. And it just is like, it's always hitting you with this idea.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry, these people are still bags of shit.
Right.
Doesn't matter how much civility reaches Deadwood, they're still piles of garbage.
Yeah. And then we have Bullock
And the boy.
And the boy.
That's literally what I have written. Bullock and the boy.
Oh no! I'm sorry. Wait, this is William and
And the little boy
the little
first.
boy.
Yeah, they're the little boy who's going off to Oregon.
Oregon with his daddy.
Yeah.
And he talks about, he's like, there's a rainbow that lives in the street, the creek here.
But there's also an interesting visual thing that's going on here with them, where the boy is on the other
They're
side
literally
of the creek,
across the creek. Yeah.
Yeah.
and so the creek divides the two of them while they're talking, and it's also interesting because it's very small. It's like a foot and a half across,
Yeah.
where it crosses at the Bullock House, and they're standing on either side of it, and then that's when the child's dad shows up and is like, "Oh, we need to get the fuck out of here."
We need to get on
basically.
this, our buggy going to Oregon.
Yeah, because we need to get the fuck out of here because Deadwood's a shithole.
Yeah.
My
And
dad
it's
says
like-
we're never coming back.
Yeah.
And then that's when he talks about the big trout,
yeah. He calls Jumbo. But like, you're right. It's like Bullock has like this idyllic little house that has this miniature stream running through its yard. It's
Yes.
almost like a toy box, or
Yes.
it's too precious.
It's too idealistic. It's obviously it's not going to stand the test of Deadwood.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, who knows? But I was going to say that there's an interesting thing with the scene, sad thing. The child who plays the boy who was leaving to Oregon was actually mortally ill at the time this was, and he was a friend of Milch's. He was a son of Milch's friend, and he wanted to be on TV, and so he died not long after this aired.
Oh man.
Jesus.
So Milch, in very typical fashion, took from life, as he often does. And so when he says, "We're going to Oregon," my pa says, "We're never coming back." That's literally Milch commenting on the fact the boy was about to die.
God damn.
Wow.
So it's very sad, just sad. And then so
Jesus.
Man, I was just kind of bummed out that, it's like, oh, poor little William, not going to have a friend to play with, but it's like, oh, there's this level. It's great.
Well, morning, William.
Morning,
and
William.
then William goes inside and talks to Mr. Bullock, or Mr. Bullock comes up and
Yeah,
talks to
he
him.
comes outside and talks to him.
And he pipes up and says, "Morning, Mr. Bullock. You got your gun and badge back."
Seth, I did. I put him in the basket for you to see. It's like, the kid doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. But, like, Bullock made this big show of making sure that, like, you saw that my badge and my gun were back. So that means that I went and I did the big thing. And I made a big show of, the law matters here, just as it matters anywhere else. And it's like, that kid does not give a fucking shit.
Well, I mean, he seems to be pretty excited about it.
And it's Bullock trying to instill, like, I think a certain kind of, like, this is the code. This is how honor works. It's like
I would disagree that kid's excited about that.
He seems excited about Bullock, at least.
I think he's excited about. I see. I don't even know if he's excited about Bullock, because, like, when he's talking to the other kid, he's talking about, like, he's my dad and my uncle. It's like he's confused about who this person is, and he's like, I think he's putting on a show for Bullock to be like, and then they talk about the fish in the creek or whatever.
Well, when Bullock is first beaten in the head and unconscious, or barely unconscious, William is questioning about his gun and badge. He's like, "Are you going to go get your gun and badge back?" And from that moment, Bullock is like, "I got to go get my gun and badge back." And it's like, it's a little bit like it's a typical television lawman thing where he's like, "This is my metaphorical penis,
dick,
and I need to retrieve it in my honor."
If only he wouldn't have given a shit about that and just said, like, the same thing that I think Charlie said in the last episode, which was just like,
get you a new gun.
Get you a new fucking gun. It's made out of, and the badge made out of fucking tin. We can get you a new fucking badge. That don't fucking matter. It's like, none of this matters. And honestly, it doesn't really seem like it would have mattered, because Al is, like, completely incapacitated in this episode, regardless of what's happening now. So if Bullock had even waited like 24 hours, he could have just walked in, grabbed the fucking shit, and walked out.
Yeah.
And, like, Al would have been like, and, like, it wouldn't have mattered.
There's a certain delight that you took in the part where he put the gun in the basket, and then he moved the basket slightly away from where the child was sleeping with his hand just hanging out of the bed.
It was like Easter Sunday. Like, he wanted to leave a present for the kid for Easter or something, and it was like, this is like almost pornographic to where he's laying this gun and badge out for this kid and taking so much revelry in, like, the kid thinking that he's cool because he got his metaphorical penis back.
Yeah.
And it's just like, get over it, dude. It's like, if you really care about being a sheriff, don't fucking give a shit about the badge and the gun and all that other shit and retribution and all this. But of course, that's his character flaw. That's what he has to get over. But just don't give a shit about any of that and just do what's right.
Well, I mean,
and what's right, I don't think, is to fucking make a big deal to getting your fucking badge back. That doesn't fucking matter.
Also, the kid's hand, and this is the previous episode, but the kid's hand was dangling near where the loaded gun was.
Yes.
So, like, if he turned into sleep, he could literally fire the gun.
If he just jerked quick enough and pulled his index finger, he would have just pulled the trigger and shot somebody.
Bullock has a really great line that made you laugh at the end of the scene, which is, William relates that the name of the trout is Jumbo.
Yeah.
And Seth says, maybe after work we can make him pay for his slothful ways.
Because he just loiters downstream.
Yeah. That's what he does.
And we know, I think we know from a conversation with Wild Bill last season that Bullock, as a kid, was called by his dad Sloth. He has a reference to that, like that was what the deadly sin that he was singled out for.
Yeah.
So there's this element that he's like taking the idea that, we've also talked about Bullock and the implication that he was beaten by his father a lot when he was a kid.
Right.
And so like he wants to kill that fucking fish because it's lazy, just like he got that kind of
moniker.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're at Alma and Ellsworth, which is precious.
Yeah, they're at the claim.
Everything with Ellsworth is precious. It's like every time Ellsworth shows up, especially after he's already said to Alma, where he's like, "Look, I know I'm too fucking old for you. It's like, let's just get that out of the way. I don't have any damn ideas about us. It's just like, I just want to do what's right by you." And so every time they're together and he's like courting her around and doing anything, it's like amazing.
He looks like a perfect gentleman. He has folksy expressions to say perfectly, and she's like dressed up like a perfect little lady.
Yes.
She's got she's holding the crook of his arm, as they walk around the claim.
And it's so incredible. But this part is the part with the pole they're being driven into the ground,
right.
and you're starting to realize the breadth of her claim and what's actually going on here, and how many people are being employed by this, and how much money potentially she stands to make by this because of the fact that there's like fucking 30 people working there on her claim.
Yeah, and they want to increase from a 5 stamp mill to a 25 stamp mill, but they want legal holdings to be secure first.
What the fuck is a stamp?
So the big rods,
Okay.
I believe, because there's just that, 5 rods.
So there's just
going
5
up and
rods.
down.
Okay.
But
So
other than that, that's all I can
They're
say.
literally stamping the ground.
And I like that the show spent, again, just like with the last episode where they went, I guess whenever they last went outside the town, they're now like, last season, they spent some money on a set outside the town.
It's an impressive piece of machinery, honestly. It's like
Yeah.
that looks like they just took, found
what
a book that shows you how to make this kind of thing, and was like, let's.
And what
let's
is
make
it powered by?
Water?
I didn't quite see like what the power source was, but that's usually how
Hydroelectric.
mills work.
Yeah.
Just water. But I didn't,
Okay.
I didn't like show a shot of the.
Yeah. Deadwood rarely shows the mining that goes on.
Yeah.
It does-
The show's all about.
It does say right here, Alma admires her mill. So maybe,
Yeah, he calls it a
So-
5 stamp mill.
yeah.
And there's
so
also,
I guess if they say mill, it must have something to do with water.
Right.
I would assume.
there's always references to Alma. They always talk about your holdings, your worth. There's always like this double entendre with her as like a person and her as her holdings, her
Yeah.
claim.
Right.
And Ellsworth again plays into that. And they look like a nice couple.
Yeah, they do. It's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And then we get into Seth and Miss Isringhausen.
Yeah, it's the first time
Never-
seeing it
I've
written.
never known how to pronounce her name. Isringhausen.
Played by the lovely Sarah Paulson.
Yes,
Who is a person?
she's big now.
She does what?
She was
American
in-
Horror Story is her most famous television
I
show.
I
haven't
think she was in Glass.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
I've seen Glass.
She was in Glass, right?
Yeah, she was in Glass.
I haven't seen any of this stuff. So,
I would not recommend Glass.
so Seth comes in, presumably to talk to Alma, and then gets Miss
She had apparently given
Isringhausen.
a watch to Alma
He
to
did.
teach. Yeah, he had given a watch to Alma to teach Sophia numbers
Time. Yeah,
or
yeah.
time. And
And so this is the point where Miss Isringhausen gives the watch back to Seth. And we find out later, not entirely by Alma's insistence, right?
yeah, I mean, well, it's still a little unclear, but we remember last time we saw Mrs. Isringhausen, or last time she was really in a scene, she was telling Alma that Seth didn't want to go away with Sophia.
Yeah.
And Alma had this angry reaction, like, I need Sophia. It means so much to me. I don't want to go out of town without Sophia.
Right.
And so here, the communication between them is overseen by Mrs. Isringhausen.
Yeah.
And we don't ever see the communications that she gives to each other.
Right.
And so like here, she kind of rubs it in that Alma's not interested in him, and he says, I got it. I get it.
I take your that's her. I take your meaning, Mr. Bullock. If she decided it was appropriate, other parties would be delighted and grateful.
I think he says, all right, is when he cuts her off. He's like, I get you're a double entendre.
Right.
Yeah. We don't really know what's going on there.
No, not 100%. She seems to have some other... I didn't think there was going to be the possibility of having somebody more uptight than Alma, but Miss Isringhausen is the most uptight person I've ever seen on screen. Mm-hmm. And I've seen episodes of Downton Abbey. Yeah. And I think Miss Isringhausen is more uptight than most of the people on Downton Abbey.
At this point, she's a pretty confusing character. We never saw her introduced. She just appears at the beginning of the second season.
Right.
Sure.
We never see half the things she talks about.
Yeah.
And then there's more that happens this episode later.
She's just there to teach Sophia. That's it. That's all we know. She's from Chicago. And then at the very end of the scene, EB, in a very offhanded comment, walking out of the shot, says, "The camp pugilist."
As he passes Seth. Yeah. He has built up that reputation, I guess.
Yeah,
He gets into some scraps.
He's a
public
jackass.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
And so then we have Maddie and Joni discuss Mr. W.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We see. Oh! This is some interesting stuff going on here because I don't feel like they. I can't remember a lot of times where they do this in the show where they cross-cut while other people are talking.
They did it while the build up to the fight from the balcony in the first episodes of the second season.
Okay.
When they're Bullock and Swearengen were talking.
So this is kind of a second season new thing.
Maybe, yeah, I think so.
Because I don't really. This doesn't seem like a pre-established thing necessarily in Deadwood, the show. That they're cross-cutting between things happening while other people are talking, and it's interesting.
Right.
It gives you a different way to view Deadwood and the episode.
Right, because they're talking about Mr. Walcott, and meanwhile he's settling into his room, and that's what they're cross-cutting.
With EB.
Joni and Maddie are talking about him.
Right.
It makes it even more complicated because like you can't. You're trying to follow the conversation because like if you haven't watched it before, you're like, wait, what's going on? What are they saying?
Yeah.
And then you're seeing different people doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's why I didn't quite understand what was going on with Maddie and George W. Bush was because she volunteers a lot of information in this scene while this cross-cutting and stuff is going on, and so it's like, I guess that's my fault because I should know that the real heart of Deadwood doesn't really necessarily lie in the images. It lies like in the dialogue. And I get distracted by images in shows very easily because I feel like that's kind of like the forefront of what's going on, but not really in Deadwood.
Well,
not most of the time. Most of the time it is about the dialogue because there's so much stuff crammed into that dialogue that you need to gleam off of.
Well, I found one thing I found with Deadwood is that often the simplest explanation for any given event is true, but you have to listen to the dialogue several times to verify that.
Yes.
And, he's very guilty of overcomplicating things. But again, like you say, that's the fun of it, the language.
Yes.
And he says here that Mr. W's crankiness sometimes runs away with him, which is her way of saying he's violent towards the prostitutes he likes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is and then this leads into EB and George W. Bush talking about the Hickok letter to where EB says, "Mr. Wilcox, I'm the custodian. Note, I do not say owner of Wild Bill Hickok's final earthly communication." He takes the letter from inside of his jacket, and then Wilcox says, "It's damp."
Which has been established what a sweaty guy that Farnum is, I think, from Al.
He looks damp at all times.
Well, he has damp palms. I always just took it that he just had this unnatural oiliness about his palm. I don't know.
From here, this starts this really long conversation with them. It feels long, at least, where they're talking about the Hickok letter, while EB is bringing in slowly and painfully
All the luggage.
W's luggage.
And it's right, and it's a bit convoluted. Like EB's kind of shirking around what he's actually selling, because like what he's saying is like, I pay you to deliver the letter, but then if you can't deliver the letter somehow, and then you open it and it gives you some information for a claim, then
Does this not feel like classic?
it's con man shit.
Al. Does not feel like classic Al Swearengen stuff with the original gold claim with Brom
Right,
and all this
right.
stuff, and using this very convoluted way of talking about how you're going to own this thing or whatever, and you have to buy it off of this person, and it's like, but you got to do this and that, and this weird coded language that you can't quite penetrate, and that I feel like keeps some people out of this show.
Maybe,
is because
yeah.
like the first two episodes where they're talking about the gold claim with Brom and who's the guy that gets knifed?
Which guy that gets signed? Tim Driscoll?
Tim Driscoll and all that stuff. That whole plot, I feel like that plot keeps people out of the show.
Yeah, definitely.
It's almost like
The Tim Driscoll one.
this is a gateway you have to pass through. If you're okay with not 100% understanding what's going on in this plot,
The Tim Driscoll
then-
scene.
then you can enter this show and figure out the rest of what's going on.
Well, I think you have to have a fun. You have to have a knowledge. Oh, this is a con, and it's fun that it's a con. But it's like he has an Irish brogue. It's overly complicated. They talk about numbers a lot. and-
Yeah, I mean, like it's insanely complicated. I mean, like I would dare to say that 1% of people that watch that episode
The first episode.
the first time
Right.
get 100% of what's going on in that con.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're introduced to the show for the first time, so you're just trying to understand characters, and then they just like throw this super complicated fucking con
Right.
on you right at the beginning.
I had to watch the scene in Paper Moon where the little girl shortchanges the grocery store clerk like several times to even figure out like what happened. So
Exactly.
like, you know, it's kind of difficult, especially when characters are trying to put one over
Exactly.
on someone.
Because
and-
initially your thought is always to trust what's happening on screen.
Right, yeah.
Because that's the idea of watching something.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you're like, oh, this is truth. And then it takes you a second to understand, oh, this is a falsity. I need to not trust this person.
Yeah.
It's like that's a second step that you have to take that's not pre-programmed into watching movies or television shows or whatever.
Right.
And so now that we're introduced to this, we know that we're in the second season, so EB is obviously trying to pull one over on this guy who's
Right.
just come into town because he thinks he's a fucking idiot.
And who's delighted to be scammed.
Yes.
Yeah, well, because he knows that, you know, he's going to be able to, you know, turn it on Farnum. And,
Yes.
you know, Maddie says when she's observing him and Farnum in the buffet that, you
Yeah.
know, he's going to toy with him.
Yeah.
So he's just going along willingly with this, you know.
Oh, he frequents my buffet.
Yeah. As far as I understand the scene, it seems like he's basically saying this letter has
A value
valuable
of
gold
$10,000.
claim. Yeah, it has a gold claim. It has information that Wild Bill was prospecting just before he was shot.
Yeah.
And it's worth $10,000. Pay it. And also, I'll cover $100 for you as the deliverer of the letter to his widow, though we both know that's not true. But it's the sentence is, I will pay you your costs set against whatever profits you may generate should the delivery prove impossible from the information the letter contains. And then Walcott summarizes it a little bit more clear, but still,
Yeah.
watching without subtitles, it's hard.
And then Walcott finally says 9,900 net. That's what we're talking
To
about.
you,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, yeah. And then I would pay you before attempting the letter's delivery. Obviously saying like, this is bullshit. And it's like, you're expecting me to open this letter as soon as you give it to me, and then I'm going to get some sort of idea of where this claim is. And I think even at the time, I could tell that Walcott was not like 100% believing any of this that was going on. Maybe like 5% believing that maybe this is like possibly true, but this is. He seems wary enough coming into town that he's not gonna believe that this shit's true.
Yeah.
So at the end of this scene, which is great, Walcott tries to give EB a tip, which is par for the course for this series, where EB refuses it, even though he's just demanded $10,000 for this letter.
But his body language clearly wants that tip.
Of course he does. He's a money grubbing shitbird.
Yeah.
So now we're at Saul and Trixie.
And Saul is like excited, still really excited about Trixie, and Trixie is still saying, "Look, anybody can have me for $2 or $5."
$5, $2 for a handshake.
Yep, and I'm just like, he gets upset, and then she leaves, and it's like,
oh, that's a little bit later. That's not.
oh, that's not now. Okay,
Yeah, this is just when he's getting out of bed.
I'm sorry. Morning. $2.
And Saul has a line that you liked, Chad.
Trixie leaves here.
Trixie leaves here, but she doesn't get mad. Like later she says, "I hate everybody. I wish I was a fucking tree." That's not this scene. Like this scene there, Saul makes her smile. He's like he shakes her hand to pun off her term for hand job.
The big takeaway from me for this scene was Seth coming in and trying to be like, essentially like, "I'm here. Please don't fuck inside the hardware store because we've already said that we're not going to do that anymore."
Which you already promised, yeah. But then again, he did get Saul shot.
Yeah. So he gives us some leeway, I guess.
And then there's a line when he basically talks about he learned from Swearengen before we went over the balcony that Yankton is not giving any commissioners to Deadwood, and there's a line that Saul says, "Even in Eden like this, wrongs sometimes occur."
But also right before that, they're talking about Bullock's house.
Yeah.
And Martha and the boy, William, being there, and
chose not to put him in the thoroughfare.
Seth, this is how it goes. Seth says, "How bad's that pain?" Saul, "It's all right." Seth, "I'm in my house, Saul." Saul, "With Martha and the boy?" Seth, "Chose not to put him in the thoroughfare." Or, I see what you're asking. Far as her not having different opinions, possibly. Once I showed up, no, she chose to stay. So there's some obvious issues with Seth still not 100% comfortable with what's going on.
Yeah.
With his brother's wife. and then we get into
Yankton.
Yeah. And then we're into the dock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the doc goes through like all the stations of browbeating somebody with like instructions, like to a door. His first line is, "My arts cannot be practiced at this remove." And Al is, waylaid. He can't see him inside his office.
And then uses an anachronism, I would think, which is "stop being a baby."
Yes, probably. But it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny, and it totally works. And there's a couple of anachronisms in this, and then at one point somebody points anachronisms out later. We'll get into that later.
Yeah,
but
Farnum.
Yeah.
Doc is really
but then
fun.
he summons Trixie over because he sees that Trixie's there because she just left from the hardware store, so she's over here now and is like, just fucking talk to him. Like,
Yeah.
get him the fuck out.
Yeah. Doc has a really good joke where he tells the door who he's pretending Al Swearengen knows. He says, "Rest uninterrupted, no visits, no exception."
Yeah.
So it's like he tells him to do exactly what he's doing, which is hide from everybody.
Yes.
But yeah, Trixie then gives a little speech to him about.
It's Trixie
Yeah.
that's overheard the doc's instructions. So let me just shout my information from here. Nobody's dead. Bullock's gone to the house that he built. Star is on his feet, more or less. Anyways, I'm going to stay on the car, on the ear, over to the hardware store.
Yeah.
And then that's when Al does his strained.
Yes. And she has a great phrase, which no one has ever figured out the meaning. Next sleep of the creature, they'll be here, referring to the telegraph poles. Like she's almost confiding to Al, like in almost a happy way. She's like, the telegraph poles are almost here, and it's a special thing. And the look on her face is almost delighted and happy.
Yeah, like next sleep of the creature. Basically, like, pretty soon we're gonna have society and structure here,
Yeah.
and I feel like she has this distance from him right now, where she can say that and be like excited about it.
Yeah,
in a
it's
way.
really helpful to have Al be behind a door. He can't hurt you.
Yeah, you can't grab your pussy.
But like, next sleep of the creature, if you Google that phrase, you get this episode. Like, I don't think it's a reference. People suggest it might have to do with like a references to penises getting hard, or just animals jumping, or time passing, but there's no real what creature is leaping and why. No one knows.
I mean, I guess just the creature of society and government. Next sleep of the creature.
The creature that puts up telegraph poles, I guess.
Which is the idea of society slowly encroaching on Deadwood.
Yeah,
I think. I don't know.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And then Trixie goes downstairs and asks where the fuck Dolly is, to Dan, and basically just gives Dan what for, and is like, just like if he's not out in like a few hours, like just bust that fucking door down.
Yeah.
Get the doc.
Because you can get the fucking doc, because something is wrong. He has not. This has never happened.
And it's kind of lovely how much faith she puts in her tea. She's like, "You brew my fucking tea."
Yeah.
Like that's going to solve.
Do you think that the tea reference might also be to like laudanum
It probably
or
is, I guess,
something?
yeah.
And so like that's her idea, is like,
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
yeah, just
Oh,
give
you're
him
right.
give him
Yeah.
the laudanum at least, and like he won't be in pain, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then Francis Walcott goes to the Bella Union, and there's a really great joke.
And Cy, consummate fucking casino owner that he is, just looks at a prostitute, and she goes over to W and is like, oh, and like sidles up next to W and is like, "Oh, I'm Lila," and then he's like, "Oh, that's great. Who the fuck runs this place?" And then like goes over to Cy and is like, "Yeah, I just want to talk to you."
Yeah. And Cy's greatest line is he asks for Kentucky bourbon. He says, "Pour Mr. Walcott a bourbon, Jack, and tell him it's from Kentucky."
Tell him it's from Kentucky.
That's great. It's so good.
Yeah. And they have some business about Al, Cy's virtue and whether or not he wants to lose it with Walcott. Walcott has no interest in the prostitute.
Has no interest in losing any sort of sex to Cy.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like, I don't want to fuck you, Cy. So let's just get on with this.
But Cy treats him like he treats everyone, with a mixture of threats, snide
Yes.
comments,
Yes.
and almost violent stuff that comes out of nowhere, and then
Can you be Walcott?
Starting where?
They'll walk outside.
Oh. You've approached a group in San Francisco that does business with my employer.
Well, that group and employer bullshit really quickens me with fucking trust.
That group you've approached is a fraternal Chinese organization.
Tong is not clever enough a word.
You offered them a contract to send members to this camp. That organization has a pre-existing arrangement with my employer.
So you work for who? Walcott? The railroads? Some mining combination that brings those slant eyes in by the boatload?
No, sir. I work for one man,
Jesus Christ. Doesn't every one of us?
George Hurst.
Womp, womp, womp. Womp, 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 womp. Bam. I didn't mean no disrespect if you were Mr. Hurst, but any words. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disrespect you. And
Pretty much.
And then that's when it goes downhill.
yeah, I always like that is he saying everyone works for Jesus Christ or Jesus
Yeah.
Christ?
That's what I thought.
Yes, that's what he's saying. Is like we're all Christians here. We all work for Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's like even in my murdering children stint, I'm
Yeah.
still working for Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I'm putting up my fake Christianity for you.
Yeah, I thought maybe he was like everybody works for themselves, and Jesus Christ was the expletive. But yeah, I think he was making the pun on Jesus.
I think in the way he delivered the line that it was like we all work for Jesus Christ, kind of like let's get over our obvious Christian stance towards one another and get on with the point. It's like-
Yeah.
Right.
And anyway, Mr. Walcott believes that he's shown initiative by trying to hire the Chinese mafia from San Francisco to come
Yes.
to the camp.
Yes.
And just like Al noted that it was forward thinking of him to buy up stuff in the Chinese section.
Yeah.
You know, and
Even though he's trying to displace Mr. Wu
yeah,
because he wants to be in charge of what's going on over there.
yeah,
And Mr. Wu is an obvious problem in his way, and is almost it's an invention of Al, Mr. Wu. It's a roadblock in his way towards taking over this whole like Chinese section of Deadwood, which is interesting.
yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, I mean, I'd say Mr. Wu he's a real gangster too. I mean, he's
No, I know, but I'm saying like Al. We all know Al could kill anybody he wants to kill. You know what I mean? It's like
sure,
and so Al has
but they're business partners.
has aligned himself with Mr. Wu, and in a way, he has insulated himself from any sort of issue with somebody trying to take over the Chinese section of town because Mr. Wu is the Al of Chinatown or whatever we've labeled this area of Deadwood.
Yeah,
And so that I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting that like Mr. Wu has become kind of impervious in a way, and there's like a way you have to figure out how to take down Mr. Wu as well.
yeah. And I think we noted here that one of the slurs they use for the Chinese population of Deadwood is celestials, which is a reference to the term that China was called at that time, which was, I think, the Celestial Kingdom or something. And so they just shortened the place name for China at that period in time to the word celestial, which is how they refer to them. And they also have other slurs which they use, and that's one of their place name for the Chinese section.
I think he says slant eyes or something
Yeah,
in here
but
too, and all that.
There's a bunch of Deadwood is exhaustive in racism towards the Chinese people in this part.
Well,
of
and
Deadwood.
just racism in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of it. Anyway, he invites Khan.
But I think it's interesting. Well, I guess there hasn't been any black people in. Deadwood.
We've seen the livery owner. I forget his name. I want to say Hofstetter, but it's not Hofstetter.
Yes. The Bullock deals with.
But as this season goes on, I think we'll deal more with racism against other races besides Chinese.
But I think that's interesting is that we haven't had to deal with that yet in Deadwood. But also it makes sense because it's so far north and west that wouldn't necessarily be a thing that's happened yet.
Yeah. Well,
and
we
it's
are
like
post.
happening.
We are post Civil War.
Sure.
That's a big thing. Where
Sure,
the
but
society,
But again, that's kind of like it's cordoned off to like Mississippi, anywhere east of there. It's like all that stuff's going on, but like the people that are going west and are trying to make their fortune or whatever are, for the most part, I think, poorer people that are trying to strike it rich or whatever, except for a few random like Hearst or other people that are more well off that are trying to go out there. But for the most part, I think it's a bunch of poor white people that are trying to go make their claim for it. And so I think, right, like a lot of...
Well, I mean, Deadwood will get more multicultural as we go on.
No, but I mean, like, the racism wouldn't come into play for other races until they're present. You know what I mean? Is like, it's not like, I don't think it's not going to come up until different people are available to then become racist against. It's like, since there's so many Chinese people because they're coming in from the West Coast.
Well, historically, there were black people in Deadwood.
Sure.
And the actor that shows up is one of the most famous. He's similar to Calamity Jane in terms of his fame and his coverage in the newspapers at that time.
Right.
But like a lot of times with Bullock, he gets portrayed almost as a modern progressive.
Yeah.
And I feel like Deadwood takes an approach with some of the more backwards attitudes they concentrate them all in one character. Like there are many characters that are horrible in many ways, but there's one character that they try to concentrate a lot of some of the more disturbing things that would be commonplace to like 1800s person.
Which makes sense.
And so there's a character. It's for future episodes.
Okay. Right.
But just there is Deadwood is unique among shows in terms of how it handles these characters and how awful they are, and it sort of kind of lets them be awful.
I just thought it was interesting. Like, I think it's maybe come up once where they talk about black people in America. Yeah. And so obviously once there's actually like a black cast member in the show that has come up from wherever to enter into the Dakotas, then obviously it'll become more and more of an issue because that's how it works. Yeah. Nobody's going to be racist against somebody who's not there. Yeah. Well,
again, as the series goes on, there's like racism against the Cornish, which is a really weird, actual truth.
Cornish?
The Cornish, which is like a subset of like Irish men.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
that's beyond.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I take the point.
Con Stapleton,
Leon, and Leon walk up,
and Walcott doesn't want to have anything to do with these people.
I don't want to meet these men.
And it's pretty obvious. It's like, look, I don't need to know about your underlings.
Yeah.
That are doing any of this. I need to just know that you're on my side, and that you're going to make sure that you facilitate my needs.
Yeah. And it's hilarious how embarrassed he is that he might have to talk to Con Stapleton and Leon. And they're relatively well dressed for Deadwoodites, and
especially Con Stapleton, but also again the B team.
Yeah.
B team of losers.
Con Stapleton dressed like a mayor in a play.
He has a beautiful mustache and a great top hat, and he just has this bulk. And he just is like wonderful way of speaking.
And then we're with Charlie
and Jane.
Wake up, take a count indoors.
That's perfect. That is a great Charlie Utter. But Charlie Utter and Jane are.
That's water now.
Jane has gone to sleep under Wild Bill's former coat in the jail cell of where
coat?
I mean, his
or
coat.
Or formerly Bill's coat.
Sure, yeah. Formerly Bill's coat.
Because it's not suddenly something
Not
else.
a coat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right, yes. But Jane is Jane has fallen asleep and forgotten everything after last night. They
Yeah.
apparently went out drinking,
Yes.
and she's in a jail cell.
Well, she apparently was out existing
Yeah.
because that's what she does. She drinks now.
Yes.
Ever since Bill has died, she's just been at the other end of a bottle, sucking on that teat.
Yeah. And this conversation is pretty nice for Charlie and Jane. It's almost sweet.
It's
you know?
pretty great. It's full of expletives at the beginning, and then as we go on, at one point, Jane finally says, "Would you kindly shut your fucking mouth? Hey, what the fuck's Bill's coat doing here?" Well, he wouldn't have seen it useless or as a souvenir. I figured I'd give it work keeping the bed warm. And then she says, "Where is it headed now? I'm the occupant. It ain't going anywhere." Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's the nicest thing she's ever said to anybody.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you, Charlie.
it's certainly the nicest thing she's ever said to Charlie, because every time she sees Charlie, she cusses and
Just
yells at him.
belittles him.
Yeah.
And is it because Charlie and Bill were such good friends, and Jane was always kind of like on the outside of it a little bit?
I guess, yeah.
There was always a little bit of like, she was always a little bit removed from what was going on with Bill. And Charlie was on the inside of like, you need to do this, you need to get this mining equipment, you need to do this because you can support your family and all this stuff. And I don't feel like Jane was ever in on any of those conversations.
Yeah.
And so maybe there was some resentment between her and Charlie because of that. And for Charlie to then give that coat to her, it like means a lot to her. It makes her feel like she's on the inside, you know?
Yeah. It's very
sweet.
She's very childish.
Yeah.
And
It's very sweet.
It's a lot of self-awareness for you to show any affection. And then we have Maddie and Joni.
The Chez Ami.
It's cool.
And so
Sit
this-
outside.
Knees wide.
Jeez, why?
Wide knees. Just show off the goods, ladies. Let them know you're open for business.
Show off them vaginas.
So in this they pretty much lay out. Was it here or is it later?
What?
No, it must be later.
I think they lay out Maddie's
No,
scheme.
they do. They do lay out pretty plain spokenly Maddie's scheme involving W and his preferred choice of lady,
Right.
and what that's going to mean.
It's going to be a 50-50 split.
I'm still not fully have my head wrapped around what the hell is going on in terms of like, well, it seems, I mean, you know, our split is 50-50
Yeah.
between Joni and Maddie.
Right.
What's the girl's end? I wouldn't rule out a wooden box, says Maddie. And it's like,
She's going to die.
but
It's like,
but
so.
why? Yeah, I mean, we don't know.
Because
I guess.
Mr. W is cranky.
He's cranky. Yeah. So, but it's like, he's that cranky?
They have this pre-existing relationship.
Right.
That's what I've.
Yes.
That's what I've gleaned so far. They have this pre-existing relationship, and it comes in just a little bit here, not too far, but
We can include it, yeah.
the idea that they have some sort of relationship that I guess either she then went into prostitution or she was already a prostitute and they then had a relationship, and it's something that's never set well with him, and he's been kind of chasing it ever since. That's kind of the vibe I've got from this episode.
Wait, who?
W?
Mr. W.
Oh, Mr. W. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, because he obviously, I mean, he knows her.
Knows who?
girl.
Whoever this prostitute
Oh,
is.
okay.
Whoever
The girl
this
who's coming into
I don't know
town.
who the fuck her name is. I don't know her
We
name
don't know
is.
her name yet.
Yeah.
But he obviously knows her and has some sort of pre-existing relationship with her, and it only goes one of two ways. It either like she was a prostitute, he fell in love with her, which is the wrong thing to fucking do, and then that went south because he couldn't deal with it, or he had a pre-existing relationship with her. She becomes a prostitute, and then he's like, what did I do? It's like it's one of two things.
I want to say something, but I don't think I should.
Don't say it. Don't say it. But those are my takeaways from what's going on with W and the sex worker.
Yeah, I think one of the key things, I like the actress Alice Krieg who plays Maddie, and she's basically lays down her philosophy in the scene, which is
The Borg Queen.
Yeah, she says, the only way to guarantee an outcome, honey, is contracting to be fucked. Everything else is a chance, including me letting you down. And it's just like this not very exciting view of the world where it's like the only thing that we can rely on is our ability to sell our bodies.
Yeah.
Which, may be an accurate view of the world. But it's for her, she's basically saying, I can only be a madam or prostitute.
It's
the only thing that I can do in this world that I can control.
View of capitalism. The only thing you can do is that you can sell your body towards somebody.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is, toward selling tickets or showing fucking whatever. It's like being a projectionist or whatever. Is like the only thing you can do is sell your body to make money.
But it's just so brutal to lay it down like that. Contracting to be fucked.
But that's what it is.
The Borg Queen staring at you with her black eyes.
Whether you're stocking groceries at a grocery store or working at fucking Captain D's, you're selling your fucking body to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, and that's the majority of jobs.
Yeah. Then we have a scene where I agree. It's just
sad.
It's frightening.
Yeah.
So
it's
much
very
so
frightening.
that it leads to Maddie saying, "Well, we're going to kill this girl. It's the only certainty we have. It's the only way to make some money."
Yep.
In this scene, this next scene, Charlie shows up at Seth and Saul's place, and he has all these different outstanding warrants,
Yeah.
and he forces Seth to go with him and
To sort them out,
sort
thin
them
them,
out.
thin the inquiries.
Is Farnum's slop house okay? Jane is sleeping a load off at my place.
That is an incredibly accurate performance. And so anyway, Wolcott shows up and buys E.B. Farnum, buys the envelope or the letter
As
from,
9,900.
and he
For reasons of legal nicety, we'll say that you're purchasing the right to deliver, so that legally he doesn't have to say, "I sold you Wild Bill's letter," because that would be illegal. Those are the legal niceties. It has nothing to do with W buying the letter, because all of the legal impetus like lies with Farnum selling him the letter, because that's the illegal part.
Right.
Yeah. And then we get this great scene with Jewel where she has a speech to Al's
God.
door. And she says that I need to change
So
your piss
good.
pot so that you won't fucking yell at me for not doing it.
This is so good.
And it's unusual because she's cussing like a sailor like the other characters.
Yes.
And she's passionate about Al. She loves Al. And she even adds in there, when I was sick, the doc helped me. And we need to let him see to you.
And the reason why she does a lot of this, I think, is because of the doc.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm doing this as a favor to him, and because Al will be mad at me if I don't make him better.
Yeah, they're play acting. Like the doc
Yeah.
is standing right next to her, and they're having
I'm gonna get the doc.
Yeah, he may give her a thumb up, but I think there may be some affection from Alma to Swearengen. I mean,
From Jewel to
Jewel to
Swearengen.
Swearengen.
No,
Of
I
course,
think
of course.
like all of the
100%.
people under his charge
Everybody
are like
in the gym, yeah,
very
it's-
much like
100%.
they don't want to see Al die. I mean, where does that put any of them? Like,
No, I mean, like, Dan would be wrecked.
yeah,
He would, like, and he's next in line, but he doesn't want that. I
Yeah.
don't think. I really
No.
don't think that he wants to be the guy who's in charge. He would be 100% wrecked if something happened to Al. He views him as a father and would possibly just kill himself if like something befell Al like that. He couldn't deal with it.
And he breaks his shoulder here.
Yeah, to open the door.
Breaks down the door.
Which is really funny. It's like one of those old, it's like those ideas with like the Hollywood stuff. It was like, obviously you don't use your shoulder to break a door because that's ridiculous. It's like, and so he does that first, fucks his shoulder up, and then kicks the door down, which is what you should do. Attacking the hinges, which is what he does, and the hinges fly off, and then
That's
when
find
they're able
out.
to get in, and that's when he says he fucks his fucking shoulder up.
And it's very like cool to see them all care for Al.
Yeah.
It's out of nowhere tenderness.
Yes.
Then we go back to Seth and Charlie Utter.
Do we need to get the laudanum?
Yeah.
Of course.
And Seth and Charlie Utter are just throwing away cases as they warrants out for arrests for killers they never heard
They
of.
have a
Quote,
stackpole.
Quote, please don't let up on the Stackpole case, as I'm sure he's out there. And then Charlie says, no idea. Never heard of it either. So, yeah, they just don't have any idea who any of these people are. And it's like, I guess they're getting all these telegraphs now?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I guess the telegraph has just arrived. No, it's not yet here.
Or
It's not-
they're
So
getting
it's
They're
letters.
getting
yeah,
letters.
Yeah.
they're getting letters.
And so they're not really sure what's going on. And then Charlie, throws it in the fucked case file. And then this amazing scene, again, Alma and Ellsworth. That pairing is so amazing.
Yeah.
Alma comes in and says, I'd like to buy Mr. Farnum's hotel. To do what with, Mr. Gareth? Or Mrs. Gareth? To renovate and make my residence. I can think of better fucking locations with friendlier views. And then she basically is just like, fuck Mr. Farnum.
She feels
That's
that
why I want to do it.
it will really mess with him to lose his hotel.
Yeah, because he is an asshole and is like obviously in on killing my husband. I do not care for this man. I want him to suffer.
And she sees him every day.
She sees him every fucking day.
And she uses another phrase you referred to, phrases which were maybe out of not anachronistic. And she says, I am pissed off,
Yeah.
which sounds so modern.
Right. I'm pissed off. She says, well,
Type the lowborn, let's see. Get
Ellsworth says
pissed
it.
off. Yeah, he starts off and then she.
Type the
affirms-
lowborn would say when we get pissed off.
And then she says, I am pissed off.
Come by with punching somebody who knows I volunteer one that's well broken. I'm pissed off. Yep. And and then EP, as she walks in, kind of almost like paralleling Bullock walking in
Yeah.
and saying, what does he say?
Farnum says, the camp pugilist.
Camp pugilist. When Alma walks in, he says, safely return.
And it really gets to her. Like she has no rejoinder.
It cuts her to her fucking bone.
But she's just looked at Bullock, who's literally
Yeah,
there.
right,
And they both
just-
stare at each other with a little bit of
Right.
looking like
Because-
people who did not just reject each other.
Because he's there looking over all of these other
cases.
cases
yeah.
from different cities
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and stuff. And that's happening in the hotel lobby.
Yeah.
So then when she walks through to go up to her room, that's when they see each other.
Yeah. And then we get to the scene between Trixie and Saul, where she says this wonderful line, which I would say is like the most Deadwood line ever, that it's maybe to Deadwood, which is, fuck every fucking one of you, I wish I was a fucking tree. And then she storms off. Like, I wish I was a fucking tree. Like, what human being said that?
Hold on.
Doesn't reference anything else. Or
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
She says, as soon as she walks in,
Uh-huh.
is he here too?
Yes.
Yeah, talking about Seth. Talking
No.
about Bullock.
He's my friend Trixie. And I have to say, I do not disagree with her hatred of Seth. he is an asshole. He is selfish.
He almost got Saul killed.
He almost got Saul killed.
He almost got Al killed.
And yes. And not that she knows this, but that's not the first time that he's almost gotten Saul killed.
I guess.
No, I mean in the very first episode.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he's got the shotgun pointed everybody. They could have easily just pulled out all their guns and fucking shot him. It's like not a big deal. And that's kind of just par for the course for him because he feels like, oh, this is the right thing to do, and everybody needs to be sacrificed so that this right thing can be had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can 100% identify with Trixie not liking this guy. And like you were saying in a previous episode, when he was in that showdown with Al, she pulled out that rifle and was pointing it at somebody, and it was definitely Seth.
It's unclear, but yeah, it seems.
No. It was definitely Seth.
We don't see.
No. Because editing is a science. Okay. So if we show that, I'm sorry, but if we show that Seth is here, and then we show that Trixie in the following shot is pointing a rifle at somebody, and it's not up at a balcony, and if it shows Seth before then and after it, she's pointing the gun at Seth. I mean, you're right. That's what she did.
Yeah.
She pointed the gun at Seth because she wasn't sure what he was going to do, because she doesn't trust him, which is 100% accurate, because he's kind of a psycho. So, like, you have to, like, completely keep him under lock and key. He's not trustworthy to do the right thing.
Well,
He's trustworthy to do the thing that's to pop off and fucking do the thing that last set him off, but he's not trustworthy to do the right thing necessarily unless he has enough time to think about it and have other people to tell him this is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fucking just shoot somebody in the head.
I feel like Trixie has no right to accuse people of being guilty of. Trixie has a lot of anger too.
Trixie has anger too, but who she killed?
Well, she killed that one guy who was beating her. You got a good point. She
killed the guy who was a monster who tried to murder her.
he was beating her. We don't know if he was trying to murder her.
I mean,
she
we saw her face.
That's true.
She would have been dead. It's like if that guy would have kept going.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right. Got a pretty
I
point.
mean, like it's. Yeah, I mean, I think I haven't seen anything that's proven that.
But Trixie is
she
given
doesn't understand proportional
response.
But
going by what you're saying, she almost shot Bullock, like dead in the back.
But she didn't.
Out of anger.
But she didn't.
Yeah, but I say Trixie is also
given
to anger.
This is different from Bullock.
Yeah.
Bullock would have just shot somebody.
Okay, yeah, I'll concede that. I concede that. But I mean, I'd say that she's definitely right to be annoyed by the danger she puts her new boyfriend in.
Yeah. She's done nothing so far to prove that she is as unreliable as Bullock is.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we get to one of my favorite scenes before we get to my favorite scene with Trixie.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Alma and Ellsworth talking. Actually, no, that's the pissed off scene. Okay, this is actually no, it's not. Well, where are we?
Yeah,
we're not yet to Trixie and Jane, but we're almost there.
We're back at EB and Wolcott. This is where he realizes that he's been taken for a ride, right?
Yeah.
And then EB talks him into going over to the gym.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what's happening right now.
He can have backup.
Yeah.
There's altercation.
Yeah. Okay. That makes 100% sense.
I assume
that makes sense.
But I love the contents of that letter are a deep disappointment. It's just like he's so. It's a very funny conversation, and
one of the more meta sort of jokes happens when they're crossing the street over to the gym, and Farnum says, "Some ancient Italian maxim fits our situation, whose particulars escape me." Just doesn't even have the maxim on hand, and Walcott says, "Is the gist that I'm shit out of luck?" EB says, did they speak that way back then? It's like
Exactly.
comes up again and again with
Which is what
Deadwood.
we were talking about before we got to that.
That's the idea of the anachronisms, and like I feel like they've kind of reached a peak in this episode of the anachronisms, and so that's kind of a way of addressing them in a way.
Right.
And it's really clever.
Yeah, that is. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. And so EB and Walcott sit down at the gym.
I mean, we could go through this really point by point, but I feel like it's honestly pointless.
Yeah.
Essentially,
It all boils down to, Wolcott knows now that EB's letter is worthless. Now he just has to, pull on the hook that he's got EB in and say that, it's not my money that you've just taken.
right?
I'm an intermediary.
Yeah.
Working for George Hurst.
Yeah.
You have George Hurst's
dumb
money now,
fuck.
you idiot. You done stepped in
Fucking
it now.
idiot. And then that's when he's like, "Oh, what can I do to rectify this situation?" And then that's when he's like, "Well, you can start spreading rumors that all of these plots are fucking useless."
Going to be invalidated.
Yes, they're totally going to be invalidated. I mean, that's pretty much it.
And it's a nice buffoonish detail that the first time he drops the name Hearst to intimidate him, he says, "I missed the name." Like he doesn't notice.
just rolls right over it.
Yeah. But he immediately becomes his toady. He's
Yeah.
shaking him down. He becomes his toady, and then Walcott says, how does this hat make my head look big?" And then EB's response is, "I think it makes it look just the right
Just
size."
the right size.
size.
And that's right after he's talked about where is a good place to get strange or something, and then that's when he refers him to the Chamois.
Yeah. And then we have Cy giving this speech to his employees.
"You're gonna find something out now about yourselves and your fellow man. How you handle adversity or rumors of adversity or ill fortune or turns of luck, and I'm not going to further rumor or be a part of that bullshit. Do you know? Wait. Do you? Wait.
I think it's a typo.
Damn it.
Want?
Do you want?
That's probably what they meant
That is
to-
typo. Do you want
Script typo.
to know where I stand? You just look the fuck where I'm standing. He's at the top of the stairs. You'll find all you need. I ain't going anywhere. And if anyone else wants to, 2 weeks fucking severance is waiting for you right fucking now. You step the fuck up. Step right the fuck up.
Yeah.
Now that shows me something. But anytime, day or night, anyone wants to fucking waver or fucking change their minds, you step right the fuck up and get your severance.
Yeah.
Let's open the fuck up and get it while we can. All right?
It's like a pep talk that does the absolute opposite. I mean, nobody knows what the hell he's talking about.
Nobody knows what the hell he's talking about.
It's instilling nothing but uncertainty. Like
Yes.
nobody walked in that day thinking like anything's wrong. There's any problems, and like he's just put it all into their heads.
Yes. It's amazing. And then Con Stapleton says, "Open up." You heard him. Let's go. And then that's when we're with Trixie and the doc.
They discuss what's going to happen with Al, the instrument.
And
He shows it. It's very long
this is
and
what he talks about, tapping on it.
yeah, tapping on the
Inside of his
stone.
bladder.
If I can hear it outside of his screams, then I'll try to push it aside and let
So
some
he can piss.
so he can piss
And then if I have to, I'm gonna cut it out. I'm gonna cut it out
above
of
the
his fucking
above the
bladder.
pubis. And
He uses very clinical terms.
yeah, I mean, at this time in history, like invasive surgery in the best of situations is
not good.
not. Yeah, the outlook's not good. So in a place like Deadwood with Doc, who's a general practitioner more or less, I mean, he's probably got a few things he can do better than others. Like STD.
Well, he does have Civil War battlefield experience.
That is true. So he's got field medicine experience, but
Right.
like, Yeah, removing kidney stones. I don't know if he's really. That's really something that is part of his wheelhouse.
Right. So then Con Stapleton says, anything you want to tell us, Mr. T?
Oh yeah,
I'm sorry,
Con and Leon.
We're inside Tolliver's office.
They poke their heads in simultaneously,
Which
like
is
a couple of
comic.
jokers,
Yeah.
a couple of circus clowns, and they want to try to clarify what the hell Cy was talking about.
Believe me, you don't have waverers standing in front of you, or doubters, or anyone looking for fucking severance. Just the opposite. What's that mean? You looking for a fucking raise? Because the opposite of that would be looking for a raise. It's great. It's great.
Again, Cy Tolliver,
fantastic.
like you know, like half of his lines are like comedic,
Yeah.
but he's full of like threatening sexual violence and regular violence on
Right.
every single person he meets.
Yes.
And half of them are his employees, and it's just very confusing because it's just like Powers Booth by himself. It's bizarre.
It's amazing. And then in this scene, basically, he owns up to the fact that maybe
Maybe there's a rumor. Maybe there's something going around.
there's a rumor that maybe all the gold claims and everything aren't going to be honored.
Well, I mean, this is the Hearst lie.
Yeah.
That he's
Right.
being paid to spread for Hearst, just like Farnum.
Right.
Rumors of judicial invalidation.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah,
That's pretty much it.
they pretty much fail to understand that and agree to spread the rumor
Yeah.
unknowingly. And then we get to one of my favorite scenes in this entire series, which is just a very simple belch with Jane. And
That's fucking progress.
Jane and Trixie are talking, and this scene accomplishes two things. One, it gives Jane the opportunity to play the less drunk person.
Which
And it's-
okay, but that happens over time. Teague, can we do this scene?
Yeah, sure. Who am I?
I'll be Jane.
Okay.
Now that's fucking progress.
Cocksucker upstairs, across the way, whorehouse where I work.
He is a fucking cocksucker.
Locks the fucking door so people can't get to help him. Fucking ashamed to be sick.
You know he had a design to murder that little one.
No, I didn't.
Hell yes, he had a design. Charlie and me spirited away from camp, forced him to a second victim more suitable to his cocksucker's purpose.
Think they're any different if they had their fucking dicks cut on? They ain't no fucking different. You gotta like their friends. They won't teach you numbers or every other fucking regulation they set.
Anyways,
Long pause and then not sure what the hell she's talking about.
A really brilliant look on her face.
Yeah, it's just. Far as it fucking goes, he also brought the cripple from that orphanage.
what orphanage?
And don't buy his bullshit about the 9-cent trick.
What cripple?
Jewel that he says he's got around because against some hooplehead only having 9 cents and wanting a piece of pussy, that ain't it. Why she's around is it's his sick fucking way of protecting her.
Get some whiskey.
There's entries on both sides of the fucking ledger is the fucking point. I already talk like a fucking Jew.
Shave it up to be a nice, cool evening. Maybe he has a good side to him, too, that I entirely fucking missed. It's always fucking possible. Drunk as I am fucking continuously. It's nice to see you.
It's a brilliant scene.
It
Yeah, it's
is.
really good.
It turns fucking Jane on her head.
Mm-hmm.
The entire time we talk to her, she's always been talking about how he's a cocksucker, he's a piece of limey bastard, fuck this guy. And she's brought up against somebody who hates Swearengen more than her because of close proximity.
But she also seems to really...
She loves him too.
Yeah.
But it's the same side of the same coin. It's a different side of the same coin. And so she doesn't know how to approach this other person who has the same vaguely same point of views as her, but has a better understanding of who this person is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when maybe he's cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave now.
It's just so awesome. It is so ridiculous that it ends on her saying, "It's nice to see you."
It's nice to see you.
It's like it's so weird
and
for
they
her.
haven't seen each other since Jane left, basically saying, "I'm gonna go get drunk,"
And die somewhere.
and that was the
basically.
end of
Yeah.
it. It was like,
Like
that,
when did Trixie and Jane have another scene? Like I
that
don't-
was it. That was the last time.
when?
I mean, that's like been like 6 fucking episodes.
I mean, this is the only. I don't remember the previous scene where they had, but regardless, I love that.
Because Trixie and Jane were overseeing at the same time, in a way,
Overseeing
a little
the
bit.
girl?
The little girl.
Oh, you're right.
A
Yeah.
little bit, in
Oh,
a
yeah.
way. And so, like,
Sorry.
but like, then when the overlap started happening, that's when Jane was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
It was like, Trixie can do it from here.
Yeah.
I'm good.
And there's a. What's so funny is just how the awkward looks Jane gives, and how she feels like, and then Trixie goes into like anti-Semitic shit, and
Yes.
then like strange phrases about numbers and things that the Jane is just nonplussed, and Jane is usually the comedic thrust of a scene.
Yes.
And-
But it still retains the comedic thrust of it.
Because of her confusion and
Yes.
like, just pause and shift the
That's-
topic away.
That's your boss?
Yeah.
You should have more positive things to say about him.
And then Trixie lays out a pretty central thing, which is that Al Swearengen keeps Jewel around not because she's available to people who only have 9 cents and want to hire a prostitute,
Yeah,
but because it's his sick fucking way of protecting her.
right.
And this is the central idea that I think we've talked about before, which is just that Al Swearengen, at least this fictionalized version of Al Swearengen, is trying to rescue people from an
Yes.
orphanage and
Yes.
prevent, and save them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a horrible way to look at it, but is, I think, the way that the show is portraying it. And,
Well-
that's the way his character is.
Yeah. And what other way does Al have to save anybody other than like be under my employ?
Being a monster.
Yeah.
That's
That's yeah.
That's it. Then we're back to Miss Isringhausen
Mm-hmm.
talking about the watch, and Alma kind of lays into her, and not completely fairly
Well,
in a lot of ways.
yeah, I mean, it's unclear what she's getting mad at her about. Like, why is she so angry that she's cold to the child?
She's mad that Alma, I'm talking about, is mad because she can't be with Bullock.
Yeah.
That's why she's mad. And she's taking it out on Miss
Isringhausen.
Isringhausen. And even though Miss Isringhausen is a know-it-all fuckhead about stuff and very prim and proper, as we've said, it's not necessarily her fault why Alma has decided that she can't pursue Mr. Bullock.
Yeah.
And Alma is taking this out on Miss Isringhausen
Yes.
unfairly in this scene, and kind of showing the fact that she is a upper crust kind of bitch. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, just like Brahm, or is
Well-
that's the problem. Is like there's very few upper crust bitches like Brahm and Alma to wait against. So she is kind of like her and him are kind of like the measures of upper crust people. in
Well,
this show.
Mrs. Isringhausen has presided over the end of Alma and Seth's relationship.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
she's been there for that.
Yes.
And she's also, I don't know, it does seem very brutal. And
It
it
is-
seems very
it is pretty
confusing.
brutal.
You're like, why is Alma, who's generally so sweet, attacking this young woman?
Because she's bitter because she can't have Seth. That's it. That's 100% it. She can't control the situation, so she's going to take it out on Miss Isringhausen.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's sad, but that's kind of what happens. when you have really rich people, is they take it out on the help,
Right.
on the messenger. That's also been in the show before. It's like, don't kill the messenger.
Yeah.
Silas. But she kills the messenger, basically, in this episode. And I wouldn't be surprised if Miss Isringhausen didn't come back, but at the same time, it would make sense for her to come back, since she says in this episode, I came all the way from Chicago to fucking do this,
And I can't get out of here.
and I can't fucking get out of here, as far as I know. So, for fuck's sakes, just please don't fire me.
Yeah, because I don't want to die.
It's like, I just want to live. And it's like, I'm just trying to help you. And it's like, it seems like this is the most beneficial thing to do in this situation. He's married. It's like, I'm trying to help you as far as I know.
Yeah. And then the next scene is Lila and Cy. Lila is the prostitute from earlier, and Cy is sitting with her, and she's dressed. They're going to bed, but she's dressed completely like in a showgirl outfit.
Oh, this
with like a feather and a
This is where we see his chicken wing of a leg.
yeah, and bright green
His
pajamas.
Old dirty chicken wing.
Yeah, and she explains to him that she prays for him every night.
Which is pretty incredible. And
And
then,
he
he's
doesn't.
just like, all right, stupid. Time to shut your fucking mouth. Shut your fucking mouth now and turn over and close your eyes.
Yeah.
That's right after she says, I pray for you every night.
Well, he seems offended that she says that. And again, it's maybe Cy is like Calamity Jane and Charlie in that he just threatens to kill everyone. But he seems so much more believable.
But what's great is it doesn't feel like he takes offense to her saying that necessarily. It's that he just suddenly says, all right, stupid. Almost like because like she prays.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, stupid. Close your fucking eyes, shut your mouth, turn over, and so I can fuck you.
Well, we think that, but then it's apparently to go to sleep because she puts up the blanket and he just stares into space and she swaddles herself the blanket.
Kind of
Maybe.
face twitches a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, he
I
might.
feel like something was
I
it
think-
perturbed him a little bit just to kind of think about like
He fucked her.
Yeah.
And then we're into the Chez Ami
Yeah.
with Walcott and Joni and Maddie.
And Joni arms herself to hang out with Walcott.
Yes, after he realizes that the lady that he's looking for is not there. That's when Joni steps in and is kind of like, "Hey, why don't you go with me?" And he's like, "You're not really my type." And then he's like, "Well, but maybe I could be if I, touch your penis." And then he's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And then, they go in the back, and that's when she flashes her gun to every other lady in the place, which is a little strange, but
Well, I think it's a rebellion against her friend Maddie, who basically got her involved in a murder that she didn't want to be a party to, and it results in Joni being more animated than she ever is.
Yeah.
Like usually she's kind of like a little sullen, but here she's like talking back a lot, and it's wonderful. And Walcott, on the other hand, is like walking around the room, and he sees a prostitute, and he's like, "Leave."
get out of my sight.
Yeah. And Maddie, the board queen, has a great line when, after she flashes the gun, she says, "She kills that fucking cocksucker, I'm going to be working for the rest of my life."
Yeah.
So again, the focus is on her. She needs this for her retirement money.
Okay, so then after this section is where we get into E.B. and Richardson. Richardson is
his cook
the
and
underling.
Yeah.
For E.B. Richardson. When will come the quiet hours of our declining years? I'm talking to you, dimwit.
I wasn't listening. And then Farnum just goes into this
long soliloquy.
Yeah.
It is incredible.
just
Richardson, won't you sit yourself? Allow me to take up your labors. I am confiding that turbulence, upheaval of the most violent sort, churning seas, waves of a scale and force to make the most seasoned seafarer vomit, and he fake vomits into the bucket. in that moment, are in prospect for this camp. And we, Richardson, you and I, and tragically others,
The tragedy is only reserved for the others.
so very many others who journeyed to the hills to stake their claims, and with those claims, their hopes for the future are but pawns of the savage seas. That's when he throws the brush back into the bucket. Not for us, apparently.
And playthings of the fucking deep.
Oh, I'm sorry. And playthings for this fucking deep. Not for us, apparently. The placid harbor on which voyages near complete to bob and rot, as he rocks back and forth, be calmed. For us, to the very end. What's he? Oh, god damn. There's a lot of shit going on here.
The dizzying surges
The
of the
dizzying
storm.
surges of the storm and its crashing descents. Do you understand me, you repulsive lout?
Now,
He goes on this long Shakespearean soliloquy and then calls him a lout at the end of it for not understanding what the fuck he's saying, to which Richardson says, no.
Yeah.
Of course he didn't fucking understand anything you were saying.
But no, Richardson says no like a child. It's like,
no.
But what's great is the last time we saw Farnum was during the day, right? Now this is clearly at night. So he's had hours to rehearse this entire fucking thing I just read, to where he's thinking about it and thinking like, well, Richardson's gonna have to be scrubbing these tables at this certain time, and then I'm gonna do something about the sea. And it's like, and he's not gonna get it, but I'm still gonna do it anyway.
he has to spell it out. You know,
Because
it's
that's
just-
what Al would do.
Right.
Al would say this thing that nobody gets, and then everybody rallies behind it, and it's like, okay. But the difference is, Al speaks a little more plainly than this. This is very coded and very strange.
No,
and very so metaphorical that it means nothing.
you can't. No, you can't. You can't at all from what he just said, come to understand the claims. They're going to be overturned.
None of it.
It's like that. No, you don't get that from
It doesn't
that.
make any fucking sense.
He treats Richardson like he's a total idiot.
but
for
on
not,
another level, Farnum feels comfortable performing a monologue for his dunce friend.
because
Yeah.
he's a moron. So he feels no.
He feels superior.
Yeah, he feels
and
way
therefore
superior
comfortable
to
to
him.
perform.
Right. And then at the end of it, EB says, but confide in no one, as he gives Richardson the night off. And then he pauses, and as Richardson is comically scurrying to the door, he says, about the claims.
It's like itchy and scratchy.
Yes,
It's very
exactly.
strange.
So now we're back at Joni and Mr. W.
They have a little weird kind of
And she-
push and pull.
And she basically is like, do you want me to fuck you? And he's like, no. And then it's like, do you want me to unbutton your buttons? And then he's like, maybe. And then goes over there, starts unbuttoning his buttons, and is like, what about these buttons? That nobody ever complains about unbuttons his pants. And then he's like, doesn't say anything, and then gets down and says, meh. And then she gets up and is like, what do you want me to like masturbate? And he's like, And then she sits back, starts masturbating, and he's like, no.
I think
And then
not.
it's like, God, what the fuck do you want me to do, dude?
Well, I mean, he seems very uncomfortable, as we saw with Farnum. He's very uncomfortable with Farnum touching him.
Yes.
And he's very uncomfortable with Joni touching him.
Yes.
And he seems almost frozen. He doesn't tell her not to,
Yes.
but he freezes, and
Yeah.
he's unable to move almost.
Yes.
And the idea of sexual contact is disturbing to him.
Yes.
But
And that's kind of the main idea
Yeah.
in that
yeah.
scene.
Well, there's also a little bit of a kind of a point. He gets excited. He's excited that he's like, what an interesting person you are in so many words. And then he says, I will bring you stories of the world of men.
Right.
And she rejoinders with, I'll be here in my girl's world diddling myself.
It's like, please, just, I'm here to make money off of sex. Can you just? That's fine. All the things you're saying. It's like just. I need to make money.
Yeah.
You've seen the place. There's nobody here.
And he ends the scene by saying, "I admire you coming armed." So he's like, he knew she had a gun.
Right.
Then we go to the
We're at the
scene.
docks. We're at the docks.
We're at Swearengen's, and
We're shoving-
Doc's got the
yeah, you're
rod.
Right. We're at Swearengen's. Fucking Doc shoving a probe up his fucking dick.
He's telling him what he's gonna do, and he does it, and it's painful.
Fucking Christ. Johnny in this scene is just like, what are you doing?
He doesn't know what to
What
do.
are you fucking doing?
Doesn't have a
dude?
clue what to do.
He runs out to the back, throws the doors open, runs out on the balcony, as Alice is like, and is just screaming.
He also
And
says,
it's-
"Mother of God."
Yeah, Mother of God. And it's just like, I don't know, shut the fucking doors so that nobody fucking hears your
Well, but-
boss screaming?
All the people of Deadwood, even Jane,
Yeah.
look concerned, except for Bullock and his
Yeah.
family,
Well, because they're
who are having a
just far
perfect
enough
meal.
away.
They're having a perfect meal together.
They're on the other side of the creek.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Yeah. I'd say it's Bullock not caring about Swearengen to that degree.
Right. And the screams resounding through the camp.
The crick shields them.
But I would say it's a metaphorical. Because like you have this, it could be like it could be a story of like a funny thing that he's screaming about someone touching his Johnson, but instead it's like this looks of concerns and this thing where we see the faces of almost everyone in the camp,
Right.
and they turn and they look with concern like, oh my gosh, Swearengen is dying.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is a really uncomfortable thing. And only Bullock, with his family, with his perfect wife and child at their perfect little dinner table in their toy box house, they're the only one who don't even notice.
Yeah.
And he represents the law and the state. And Swearengen is, I don't know, to me this scene, even without seeing, HBO is so explicit always.
Yeah.
And it's very unusual to me that they're like, men's junk is off limit for this explicitness. But like it works so well.
I don't feel like it's that. I just feel like it's so horrifying.
It's better in the mind.
Yes, it's not okay. It's not. I can't think of any HBO thing where they take
Steel rod.
a steel rod and shove it inside of a vagina, and then say like, we're gonna pull this crystal fucking garbage thing out of this person's vagina after we jam it way up inside their body and then pull it out.
Maybe real sex.
Maybe real sex.
Couldn't
But,
say. I haven't seen all of them.
But that came after.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I don't know. But what I'm saying is, I'd say that it's because HBO is more obsessed with female bodies than male bodies.
oh, no. You're 100% right. You're 100% right at that. But yeah, I would not have been able to handle it if it would have like shown like
It was really
a
excruciating.
prosthetic cock
Yeah.
with a steel rod going into it, and then like seeing it like gesticulating
And spurt
inside
blood.
of the, like,
We see the blood come down the steel rod.
Yeah.
which is enough. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I don't-
that's
it's like,
already-
I can picture the rest of it. I'm fine.
And I guess the scene is told by his anguished screams, his frozen face, and the looks of everybody in the town, everybody in the room. They all
Yes.
are
It's
just
told by the size of the goddamn rod.
yeah.
I know how big a pee hole is.
Yeah.
And then I know how big this fucking rod is, okay?
Yeah.
And then when he says tap
Yeah.
on the fucking stone, I'm like, for fuck's sakes. I don't need to hear that. I don't need to hear that inside of a human body.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What a fucking nightmare.
Well, it's a really effective scene.
It's an extremely effective scene. It's horrifying, and then it ends in the strangest possible way
With
of
Johnny,
any episode
yeah.
of the entire fucking series so far, and that it's just like Trixie and Johnny were talking for a second, and then it ends on Johnny just looking off into the distance, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like, what a weird ending.
Well, I think Johnny is facing towards the gym
Yeah,
with
he-
his back to the world, but he looks very.
Sure.
He's just concerned. I mean,
Which
he's
is strange.
Well, he cares for Al.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the ending is strange.
Just that it cuts to black.
The ending is always, as far as I can remember, the ending is always Al fucking Seth, fucking some main character.
In a moment of reflection,
Yes.
usually.
In a moment of reflection, and then in this weird turn of events, it's Johnny.
Johnny's
All people.
the most stable person in his world is in pain, major pain.
It's true. Major Pain. If you
Yeah.
guys haven't seen Major Pain, you should watch Major Pain.
Yeah, it's revealed next episode. This is all prequel for
Major Pain.
the Major Pain franchise.
Yes.
It's part of a 20-year plan, and also Glass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Major Pain happened in like 1995 or something.
I would say 90.
90s.
Oh, yeah, maybe like 96,
so
97.
that would be like a 100-year plan.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hmm.
The Wayans brothers are everywhere. They're like the Pinkertons,
Yeah.
and
A lot of fingers and a lot of pies.
yeah.
Fingers and a lot of hairy pies.
But
Uh,
anyway, it's a great scene.
Yeah.
This episode sets up things for the season, and I was surprised how much I
Does
loved
it?
it. Yeah, sorry, spoiler.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, but it may set up things for the season, and I
Apparently it does.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very comedic and funny and good episode.
yeah, I dug the episode overall.
Fuck this episode. I'm just gonna.
Not a fan. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That's all you're gonna get.
Not everyone can be a winner.
Anyway.
Two beavers slapping logs. You can't keep the gold from me.